So we created an experiment. It comprised of two groups. It was a two-group comparison in two separate rooms. So ideally, the experiment would have been conducted on the self-defense test ship down at Port Hueneme, but due to COVID restrictions, these plans had to be changed. So we chose two classrooms within Watkins Hall to represent ship compartments. So these two rooms, they represented two levels of complexity, just to represent the difference between the mess decks or main engine room. And we defined complexity as the amount of effort a subject would have to move and navigate throughout the space to include the increased presence of materials, obstructions, what have you, for them to be able to find the maintenance item. So there's two groups, the control and experimental group. The control group represented the current process, and then the experimental group used the AR. They used the Microsoft HoloLens 2, which would give them augmented reality cues, directional arrows, and rectangles to identify the objects. So we assessed them in three fields: accuracy, identification time, and their confidence. So the accuracy was assessed by the subject's ability to identify the correct component's associated ID number, which are shown on those yellow stickers with 3 digits. And these stickers were placed everywhere. They were placed all throughout the space, so give us the ability to assess accuracy. And then identification time, which was simply just a time split between when they identified each item, and then their confidence, meaning how confident they were in their ability to identify the right item based on the cues given by the headset, or if they were the control group, their ability to read the written descriptions. And so I have a short video here, kind of just show a side-by-side comparison. On the left-hand side, you have the experimental group. You can see it has AR cues that guide them to the object, and then you have a three-dimensional box overlaying the item. Then you have a virtual menu that comes off your left hand, and you can toggle between each item you need to find. And then on the right side, you have the slow current process with a piece of paper identifying each item in the room. And you can kind of get the point. You got to take time to read it, take time to find it, and you have to interpret it. So within less than 30 seconds, the AR group's done finding 3 things. I'll go ahead and fast forward here. Control group didn't finish until a minute. So I just completed testing this week. So this is just an overall overview of the subject's performance. So here we're looking at accuracy and their confidence levels. And so with testing ending at 12 subjects per group for a total of 24, both groups identified 120 items in the least complex space and then 144 items in the most complex space collectively. So an important takeaway from the initial reviews, AR remained 100% accurate throughout all testing. And since both groups remain 100% within the least complex space, there might exist a level of complexity where AR is truly beneficial, such as a shipboard complex space like an engine room. And then for the confidence levels, I reviewed all items that are claimed as anything other than high, so meaning the subject gave themselves a confidence level of either low or medium. So shown on the bottom table, AR also has a positive impact on the subject's confidence in their ability to find each item. And then lastly, the identification times. So blue and orange, blue representing the control group and and orange representing the AR group. And quite obviously, the AR group is much faster and also shows a tighter distribution of mean identification times across all items in the room. And so these colored dashed lines are the mean overall completion time of the respective groups. And then if you notice between the two comparisons of the least and most complex space, the AR group overall mean completion time is the same at 11 seconds. So that kind of gives hint that regardless of the complexity of the space, AR can still perform at a high level. And so future work, just a more diverse subject group. I only had 24 subjects. I was kind of limited in the amount of people I could run at a time due to COVID restrictions, as well as opening it up to other people besides NPS students and faculty. And then also maybe conducted in a more complex environment, utilize the self-defense test ship that's down in Port Hueneme that I mentioned earlier, just to actually put it in a complex shipboard environment. And then probably farther down the road, focus more on the importance of identifying of maintenance tasks, maybe like sequential maintenance tasks, such as like MLOCs, which is the master light-off checklist, which ships have to do prior to getting underway, or the rig for dive for submarines. It's a sequential maintenance task, turn-in valve, setting material conditions, etc. And then maybe develop an experimental design that requires subjects to identify an out of place or damaged items as shown in that bottom left-hand picture.